Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to Golden Echoes Hub. It's Charlotte here, and I'm so happy to have you with me again. We're sharing a new story every 2 hours today as part of our launch collection. And this one's called I Sold My House to Live My Dream at 68. It's a story about taking a leap of faith, even when the world tells you it's too late. So, find a cozy spot, maybe with a warm blanket, and let's travel back to a crisp fall morning in 2010. My name's Charlotte Harper. I'm 80 now, living in a little seaside apartment in St. Augustine, Florida, where the ocean whispers outside my window and the sunsets paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. But today, I want to take you back to a time when I was 68. A time when I made the biggest decision of my life. One that changed everything. It was the fall of 2010. I had been a widow for 18 years by then, ever since my husband Tom passed away in '92. I'd spent those years in our old house in Asheville, North Carolina, a place full of memories. Some beautiful, some painful. It was a house where we'd raised our children, Emily and Daniel, where we danced in the living room to big band records, where I'd sat by Tom's bedside in his final days. But by 2010, the kids were long grown, and the house felt more like a museum than a home. Every corner held a memory, but it also held a kind of heaviness, a reminder of what I'd lost. I'd been retired for a few years, after working as a school librarian for decades. Retirement was supposed to be a time of freedom, but I felt stuck. I'd go through my days, tending the garden, knitting, visiting with friends. But there was this restlessness inside me, this feeling that I wasn't done yet. I'd always had a dream, one I'd tucked away for years, to live by the ocean, to paint the waves and the sky, to feel the salt air on my skin. When I was a little girl, my family would vacation in St. Augustine every summer, and I'd spend hours on the beach, sketching the horizon with my crayons. I'd promised myself I'd live there one day, but life got in the way. Marriage, kids, a mortgage, Tom's illness. The dream faded, buried under the weight of responsibility. At 68, I thought it was too late. I'd tell myself, Charlotte, you're too old to start over. You've got a good life here. Why risk it? But the restlessness wouldn't go away. I'd sit on my porch in Asheville, watching the leaves turn gold and red, and I'd think about the ocean, how the waves sounded, how the light danced on the water. I'd pull out my old sketchbooks, the ones I'd filled as a girl, and feel this ache in my chest. I wanted to paint again. I wanted to live that dream, even if just for a little while. One evening, I was having tea with my friend Clara, my dear neighbor, who had helped me through my loneliness a few years before. Clara had passed by then, but her words still echoed in my mind. She'd always said, "Life's too short to wait, Charlotte. If there's something you want, go for it." I told myself she'd be the first to cheer me on if I took a chance. That night, I made a decision. I was going to sell the house and move to St. Augustine. I was going to live my dream, no matter how crazy it seemed. The next morning, I called Emily and Daniel to tell them my plan. Emily was worried. "Mama, are you sure?" she asked. "That house has been your home for 40 years. What if you don't like it there? What if you get lonely?" Daniel was more practical. "What about the money, Mom? Moving's expensive, and you're on a fixed income." I listened to their concerns, but I'd made up my mind. I've spent my whole life playing it safe, I told them. I need to do this. For me. Selling the house wasn't easy. It took months to sort through 40 years of memories. Tom's old records, the kids' school projects, the furniture we'd picked out together. I kept a few things. The record player, a box of photos, my sketchbooks. But I let go of the rest. When the house finally sold, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. I was leaving behind everything I'd known, but I was stepping into something new. I found a small apartment in St. Augustine, just a block from the beach. It wasn't fancy. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a balcony barely big enough for a chair. But it was mine. The first morning I woke up there. I opened the window and heard the ocean. I stood there, breathing in the salt air, and felt tears in my eyes. I was 68, and I'd done it. I'd made my dream come true. The first few weeks were an adjustment. I didn't know anyone, and the town felt unfamiliar. But I'd brought my paints and canvases, and I started walking to the beach every morning with my easel. I'd set up by the water, watching the waves crash in, and paint for hours. At first, my hands were shaky. I hadn't painted in years. But the more I did it, the more it came back to me. I'd mix blues and greens for the ocean, pinks and oranges for the sunrise, and lose myself in the colors. One day, while I was painting, a woman about my age stopped to watch. Her name was Helen, a retired teacher who lived a few streets over. "That's beautiful," she said, pointing to my canvas. "Have you been painting long?" We got to talking, and I told her about my move, my dream, the years I'd spent in Asheville. She smiled and said, "I run a little art group for seniors. We meet at the community center every Wednesday. You should come." I was nervous, but I went. The group was small, just 6 of us, all women over 60. But they welcomed me like I'd been there for years. We'd paint together, share stories, laugh over cups of tea. Helen became a dear friend, and through her, I met others. Women who loved the ocean as much as I did, who understood the ache of loss, but also the joy of new beginnings. We'd go for walks on the beach, have picnics at sunset, even take a pottery class together. I wasn't just painting, I was building a new life. Living by the ocean changed me in ways I didn't expect. The salt air seemed to clear my mind, and the rhythm of the waves gave me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I started taking better care of myself, eating fresh fish from the market, walking more, even trying a gentle yoga class Helen dragged me to. I felt stronger, not just in my body, but in my spirit. I was 68, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't in decades. Now, at 80, I'm still in St. Augustine. My apartment walls are covered with my paintings, dozens of seascapes, each one a memory of a morning by the water. I still meet with my art group every Wednesday, though we've lost a few members over the years. Emily and Daniel visit when they can, and they've both told me how proud they are. "You were right, Mama," Emily said last summer as we sat on the beach together. "This was your dream, and you made it happen." Looking back, selling my house at 68 was the scariest thing I've ever done. But it was also the best. It taught me that it's never too late to chase what sets your heart on fire, to start over, to live the life you've always wanted. If there's a dream you've been holding on to, dear friend, I hope you'll take that leap. You might just find a whole new world waiting for you. That's my story for today, dear friends. If you've ever taken a big leap to chase a dream, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. We've got more stories coming today. Join me at 4 p.m. for the next one, about the day I outran my grandkids. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Golden Echoes Hub. I'll see you soon.